Hello, everyone. Welcome to No Drama, Just Movies. We are back this week with another review. My name is Cameron Kelly Smith, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, the man himself,
Phil.
There we go. Listen, man, it's become something special now. That introduction, it's become something special.
It's
So,
become
for any of you guys,
party.
exactly that. So, for any of you guys who aren't aware, we are No Drama, Just Movies. Essentially, every week we release weekly movie reviews, whether it be current movie releases that are currently in cinemas, or some of your classics, or some rewatches, and we also do some talking discussions as well regarding some big topics in the world of movies and sometimes potentially TV, depending on how we feel. So we are this week we are reviewing a rewatch of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3. We have been doing this series now for the last couple of weeks because in the UK at least, but I believe it's also in the US, they are currently doing a re-release of all the Spider-Man movies, every single one. So we have been reviewing each one step by step. We had Spider-Man 1, which we called pretty much a near, I'm not going to say a masterpiece, but we made the joke of, Scorsese would call this cinema. We saw Spider-Man 2, which we questioned, is it the greatest live-action Spider-Man movie ever made?
So it's a masterpiece.
Yep, a bit more close. And then now we reach Spider-Man 3. I'm going to start by this. You saw this movie, I'd imagine, upon release in 2007.
Yeah.
What was your initial reaction when you watched it then? And what was your reaction when you watched it yesterday?
I don't think it's changed a lot. It was a tough watch, particularly like specific scenes.
Yep.
Because that one.
Yeah.
And it was
yeah.
it was
That's meant to be hair, by the way, for anyone confused.
yeah.
you know.
It's hard to mime hair when you don't have any.
Oh, tell me about it. Tell me about
I
it.
can't do this. But yeah, it starts really well. I forgot how much I kind of like the beginning of the third one. It starts really strong, and then we get into the whole the emo phase thing, and it just falls apart. And I really didn't enjoy that part. There's still like good moments after that, but it gets very cringy. I remember the cringe from the first time I watched it, and yeah, it's still a little a little bit embarrassing, I think.
Yeah, I think this is the thing about the movie, right? When I watched it in 2007, I was a child at that point. I wasn't even a teenager. And back then, it was the greatest thing ever because, you
All of
love
it?
Spider-Man. Well, I think so, at least at that time, because I didn't even know how old I was. I'm sure maybe barely 11 or around that or something, I think, roughly. Um, the thing is, like, when I watched it then, it was God's gift because you love Spider-Man, you love the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and there's still something so nostalgic and beautiful of his iteration of Spider-Man, and I just hold it so near and dear to my heart that there was even some moments in this movie where it still hit me. However, for me, this isn't even for me. I think the thing that bugs me about this movie is not even the fact that it is not a great movie. It's the fact that it's just such a missed opportunity.
Mm.
And I think like there's nothing worse when you're watching a TV show, for example, and you have a perfect build, and in the final season it goes to complete shit, and the finale is awful, right?
Had a
Like
few of
I'm a
those.
wrestling Exactly. Like I'm a wrestling fan, right? And there's nothing worse than watching a great story between two wrestlers. Then you get to the match, you get to the big event, and then they have an absolute stinker. Like, you know what I mean? And what we talked about over the last two movies when we're reviewing those is the fact that this was the perfect marriage of great movies and building so well to this collision, to this ultimate climax between Harry and Peter. Like it's almost like you were building towards like a boxing fight. Like if you could have had Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson in the same ring. Do you know what I mean? Like it felt like you were just building so well for everything to come to a head in Spider-Man 1, dealing with the fact that Norman is dead and Peter takes MJ away from Harry, and he's swearing vengeance on Spider-Man. So then in the second movie, Harry finding out that Peter is indeed Spider-Man, what happens there? And then so when we go into this third movie and we're thinking, this is going to be such an emotional roller coaster, seeing these two characters, once best friends, once meaning the world to each other, now having to come face to face. And they completely put that to the side. Obviously, like we were
sideline the character, like with his
completely.
Right? He's gone for a bit.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well. Even the way that he disappears, like, and we spoke about this yesterday. Like, okay, so you have that interaction with them at the beginning, and he gets concussed, right? And then he hits his head, and he disappears for how long? Then eventually coming back, and it was just so rushed. And don't get me wrong, we spoke about this yesterday. I think it's absolutely fine if you're going to introduce another villain like a Sandman, and we'll get to him in a minute because I thought that he was actually a good villain. As you mentioned yesterday, very sympathetic towards him and his cause. But to add that element, to add the Gwen Stacy element, to add the fact that Sandman is now the killer of Ben Parker element, then to add on your Eddie Brock Venom element. And it's like, it's so unfortunate. I think that's the thing for me about this movie. It's not even the fact that it's not a great movie. It's just the fact of what could have been. And those are the things that I think pay me the most. Like anytime you have a movie or show and the payoff doesn't go how anybody anticipated it, and then it's that what could have been, that's the thing that will pay me the most about this, especially because of the fact that we didn't even get a Sam Raimi Spider-Man 4. We're not to say that they would have been able to rectify what happens in 3, but you would have been able to leave a much more better taste in people's mouths if that movie was good. But obviously, we'll never know, right? But that's the thing that upsets me about this the most, man, if I'm being honest with you. And it does suck. It does suck, even watching it.
Because it could have been, especially, like you said, it builds from the first one, then the second one is even better than the first. And it could have been an amazing trilogy if that one had stuck the landing. Because you mentioned Harry and like how it builds that relationship, and you're right, it does go to a place where we want to now see it ends in the second one in a way that we want to now see the clash between these former friends or former best friends. And I would have enjoyed it much more, I think. Just an idea. Maybe keep the Venom stuff, but it could have been a film about like revenge or like anger and like just a resentment that Harry feels for Peter. And I one of the things I loved is that he's literally completely denying every possible like solution to that. Like Peter actually tells him, look, I didn't kill your father, this is what happens, and he just brushes it aside. So this could have been a film about that, just like that vengeance, that anger, and Venom fits that. I think Venom is that emotion, that dark emotion that comes through. So if, for example, we had a fight between Peter and Harry at the beginning, and Peter holds back, doesn't want to like completely destroy his former friend. But then he does get the symbiote, and that symbiote, as they say in the film, like amplifies his emotions and makes him a lot more violent. And then we have that clash again, like Peter absolutely destroys Harry, and then realizes, what have I done? And we could have had a wonderful arc, I think, with that. But yeah, they added Sandman, they added all these extra bits that I think, like Eddie Brock, I don't think we needed an Eddie Brock until like maybe the end of this one, and then it leads into the next one, and then have Eddie Venom for Spider-Man 4 if it comes out. But yeah, maybe not. But yeah, this, like you said, this could have been so much better. Much better story. But you said as well, like that Raimi himself said he just wanted to top the other two and wanted to go bigger. Um,
Yeah, I think that's the thing because I think that like there is a lot over the last how many years when we've found out more about what happened to this movie. There is obviously amongst the fans a lot of blame is put on Avi Arad, who is one of the veteran producers over at Sony and on those Sam Raimi movies, for the fact that it was his idea to introduce Venom and that Sam Raimi has said in quotes that he felt like he had less creative control in this movie and it seemed like Venom was a non-negotiable. Like Avi Arad and the studio was essentially saying, listen, this is going to happen whether you like it or not. And as a result, a lot of blame has been put on Avi Arad, and rightfully so. I think that, however, we can't completely not put any of the blame on Sam Raimi because he himself, to his credit, like has come out since and said, yeah, that he wanted to make, as he said, he wanted to make the third movie bigger and badder and bolder. And that there was even before Venom being added, there was maybe a slight hint of maybe too much going on potentially.
mhm.
Um, and I think that obviously we don't know fully who if one person maybe should have more of the blame than the other, or if they both share it equally. Obviously, you'd imagine that if he did have more control and Venom wasn't put into the movie, this probably would have been a much cleaner movie, and it would have been probably a much different movie because of the fact that you'd imagine you wouldn't have had the symbiote involved at all. And I think that's the thing as well that is important to get onto, and you touched on it. When you add the symbiote into a story, that changes your story significantly
Yeah.
because as you touched on it, the whole point about the symbiote is it's exploring that darker element of Peter Parker that maybe he doesn't fully get to show, but that now he has an opportunity to show. For example, I've been telling me, for example, the idea of that, Spider-Man himself is a tragedy. Going back to the classic line from a few weeks ago, he always chooses misery, which I'm gonna continue to bring that up, but
It's a
you
good one.
like it is a good one. And like the thing about that is that you have a character who is at times lonely, who does fall up short, who does have this heavy burden, who doesn't get to live the life he actually wants to live. As we addressed in the second movie when he's losing his powers,
Mm.
and Aunt May is giving him this speech. Sometimes you gotta, chuck your dreams to the side in order to do what's right and stay steady. And sometimes you gotta choose a different path because this is what's needed rather than what you want. And when you introduce a symbiote, what that then allows you to do is explore those deeper, potentially untapped emotions that Peter experiences that he maybe doesn't fully let on and allow that to manifest in so many different ways and much darker ways. And but that in itself is a story that you have to pay a ton of attention to.
Yeah. You
And
can't
that's the
dilute
thing.
it with other things.
Exactly. It's a real, and I mentioned this to you yesterday, but obviously, for any gamers out there, from Marvel Spider-Man 2 by Insomniac Games, like I feel like they, for example, dealt with that. I know that you haven't played the game, but
No.
they, for example, I felt dealt with that a little bit more because that story did heavily revolve around the symbiote. You still had Craven and the build of Harry turning into Venom, etc., etc., but ultimately it still did build to that. But as soon as you add the symbiote in this with the element of, you know, um, Sandman going on in there, and then also as well still addressing the Harry element, and even for example, like that whole symbiote thing, like there wasn't, I don't feel like a good amount of time spent really on that because he probably wasn't able to. Venom was a complete waste. Like he's only in it for like like what how all in all maybe like 20 minutes of the movie and it was pretty crap. Like even though the Tom Hardy Venom movies aren't exactly the best in the world, I'd take that Venom any day over
Yeah.
this one. Yeah. Why did he have no Venom voice? By the way, I don't even know, man. But like, like,
You wanted a little,
yeah,
little,
and
little
and
Venom.
also as well, you can make an argument like even with some of the not just Venom, but all the villains, Harry, Sandman, and Venom. I think they all do suffer because of the fact that there's so much going on. Like even Sandman, he has I think he's one of the villains that maybe you get more of an insight into, at least in this movie. But even that, they're not able to explore a lot. But I guess they kind of use the Ben Parker murder thing as a way to kind of, kind of amplify
Hmm.
what that character means to at least Peter's story at this point. And I guess they kind of what I can see the angle maybe they was going with, because by him having the symbiote and then finding out that it's Sandman that actually killed Ben Parker, it kind of, I can see the tie in there. And shout out as well to that really, really nice shot where he does have the symbiote and he's chasing Sandman through like the sewer tunnels. And there's that shot where like he's crawling very quietly in the dark and mixed with a black suit and the shadows are kind of covering him. And that was really nice shot, like definitely a bit more like horror, scary-esque, which I really liked as well.
I did, since you mentioned like what he does as Venom to Flint or Sandman. I think, want a little bit more of that distinction between Peter, like without the black suit, and Peter as Venom or with
Good point.
Venom. Just like what are the choices that he would make as Peter, and then what is the amplification that Venom gives him later? Because I don't think we saw a lot of Peter's choices. We like jump straight into the extreme of now he has Venom, now he gets a little bit overboard to the point where he actually regrets it afterwards.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's actually a really good point, actually. Something I didn't think about, because that's the thing. Like, Peter is not always the most likable in this movie, even when he's not Venom. And so, well, Venom, not with the symbiote. And so, yeah, I know what you mean. There's not exactly a distinction there at all times between the two. But that's the thing. Like, he kind of Peter at times, maybe more in this movie. But when you look at some of the decisions Peter made over the last two movies, especially at least how I feel in terms of it relating to MJ and a bit of the sneakiness taking her from Harry, kind of. I always thought that was kind of like a dick move. However, that's the thing as well that I will still give props to Tobey Maguire. I felt like even when he's being bad or being a dick, you still kind of feel a bit sympathetic to him, because he does have like that kind of natural, kind of like nerdy, geeky charm, at least for me, where you kind of like, you can't help but kind of go, oh, all right, it's all right. Okay, give me a hug. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, to me,
A little bit less in this.
Yeah, not as much in this movie, but he does have
Especially
a
once he
likability.
does go like, he puts on that other black suit and starts wearing his hair like that, and he goes full emo,
Yeah.
a little bit too cocky. And I was like, I think
Mm.
that's when the character lost me a little bit.
I mean, well, since we're on that point, bro, like that whole sequence, like, don't get me wrong, I know this was 2007, it was a different time, but that whole sequence is awful. Like, why make the decision to put his hair down, to have the black mascara? Like, the scene when he's dancing in a jazz club with while MJ is singing, where he's with Gwen Stacy, like it was just like it's so dumb. And I don't know, maybe it's like a thing where if I went back in time as an adult to 2007, maybe it would make more sense to me. But watching it now, especially, it's like, what is this? Like, and it seemed like a lot of people, adults at the time, had that same reaction. Like, what is this? Like, what are we actually doing here? I didn't get what the aim was there. I really didn't.
It felt like one of those studio notes, make it a little bit lighter and fun for the kids. I think that's because it didn't really fit the rest of the tone. I think because again, like we talked about how the other ones were very much drama, and this one started off as like a drama. You had that whole problem between Peter and MJ, and a problem between Peter and Harry, and that continued that sort of idea. But this suddenly felt like a bit more cartoonish.
Yeah.
And so it felt a bit more like a completely different genre.
I agree.
And yeah, like someone went in and said, "Oh, put that in because people are gonna enjoy that."
Yeah, I think that's the thing as well, like something you touched upon as well, like even the whole MJ Peter dynamic. And I think that's the thing about this movie as well that bugs me. Like, there are moments and scenes where it is, to me, it does touch me, and that it was compelling, and that it felt like you were kind of going back and forth between the movie that you knew you could potentially make and the things and relationships you could have explored, and then what we got. But even that whole idea that that Peter is becoming a bit, the idea of Spider-Man is kind of getting to his head a bit, and that MJ feels like, from a relationship perspective, that he's not being as considerate. He's not really listening to her or trying to make a bit more of an effort to understand how she feels. And but while that's going on, like they're on two separate pages, but he's still with the intention of wanting to propose. And ultimately that never happens. He obviously decides that he's not ready. But that's the reason why he says he's not ready is because Harry takes her. But whatever. But even their relationship and that story felt like it didn't hit either. That that it didn't go to where maybe we thought it could have gone, or some interesting layers that you could have added there potentially. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think that's the thing, man, about this movie. Like, it's kind of sad, like, that it did end this way and that there wasn't a Spidey 4. And even to this day, if Sony announced that Sam Raimi was coming back to direct a Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire, I would be all for it. Like, I know it's probably never going to happen. Never say never, though, in 2024 in Hollywood. But that's how much nostalgia and how much that meaning it means to me, at least with the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, especially being that was the ones that I grew up with as a child. However, at least, and we will get to obviously in a few weeks, we had a bit of a redemption in No Way Home, and we got to see him at least one more time. But ultimately, I think the question I wanted to ask you, which was at least the final question I had for you, was now that this trilogy is done. Well, it was done a long time ago, but now that we finished, obviously, this,
yeah.
Now that we finished this rewatch, what are your overall thoughts? Would you say your final thoughts on this trilogy as a whole and where this movie sat in the trilogy, or should I say the legacy? What is the legacy as a result after this movie that that whole Sam Raimi Spider-Man era leaves us? Like, does the third one ruin it that much?
Oh man, I think it leaves a sour taste, especially since that is the last one, and it's kind of like, oh, so that's how we go out. But I don't think at all that the third one ruins the first two. I think the first two still hold up, and they're still in the hearts and minds of the fans. And I actually just thought, like, from what it did, it kind of is it similar to Iron Man, where it like started off something that others then continued? Because it brought us Spider-Man on the big screen. It like introduced a lot of these things on the big screen, like Goblin, which like we mentioned, like phenomenal performances by Willem Dafoe. And yeah, it you can't forget that. I think it does leave a legacy as just having done something or started something that awesome. Despite the third one, yeah, we don't count.
Yeah, no, I like how you put that actually. Even as you were just saying that, like it did remind me like of how beautiful that era was. Those first two movies, as you said, like no matter how far we go into the future, no matter what changes in the current ebbs and flows of the comic book movie in 2024, like those two movies were special. Sam Raimi and what he did for the genre was special. Tobey Maguire and what he did for the millions of fans that fell in love with Spider-Man even more was special. And I think that one thing that you mentioned that did actually like spark something in me is the fact that when we do get to No Way Home, even from the trailers, when just the trailers came out for No Way Home, right? And we had the tease of Doc Ock, we had the tease of Goblin, right? Like, and you had the tease in your mind that, wait, is Tobey Maguire actually going to show up in this movie? Like, the fact that so many people was excited about that, and that not just excited is an understatement. Like, it was like the reason why that movie, in my opinion, made as much money as it did, or at least a big part of that, was because of all those added elements, right? Especially with the marketing and build. People were like, wait, is this actually going to happen? Are we actually going to experience this? And the fact that nearly 20 years yet later, you're using Doc Ock and Goblin in No Way Home because they are such compelling villains, and what Sam Raimi did with those guys in those movies is so phenomenal. That once again, I think, even holds up its legacy even more because it shows how great that was, and it was so great that we was able to use it in even a, hopefully for some people, as great as a way in No Way Home. And I think that the legacy will always be there. And I'm really glad that if that is the last time we see Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, I still believe a certain Secret Wars is probably looming.
Yeah, gonna...
But if it was, like, yeah, the legacy is intact. Like, even with this third movie, what a run, what an era, what a time. And as we've said as well, like, it's always gonna hold a special place in our hearts. At least speaking for myself, like that trilogy, that Spider-Man, always gonna hold like a place in our hearts. And yeah, ultimately, I think the thing that I definitely can say is that if we do see him again, I look forward to them wrapping up potentially a beautiful arc and us getting, a bit more of an idea into what did happen between Spider-Man 3 and No Way Home, since we didn't get Spider-Man 4. However, anything else you want to add before we give our out of 10 score?
I think I'm good. Yeah, let's go to the scoring.
Yeah. Okay, so what you got for me out of 10? Spider-Man 3.
I might have to do a 6. I might have to do a 6.
Higher than I thought you was gonna go.
I mean, there's still some really good bits, and I think those really good bits, because I love Venom as a character. I will never not love Venom. He looked not Tom Hardy, but he still looked okay. And like I said, the beginning was really good. So, and just for Tobey, just him alone, he deserves a couple of stars or whatever we do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would go 6.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go
Lower.
I'm stuck between a 5.5 and a 6.
Okay.
I think as a whole, if I'm just looking at the movie, I'll be generous as well and I'll go a 6. I think it's because similarly to you, what's overriding it, I think for me, is some of the meaningful moments and how much just the character and that iteration means to me. And I know that's unfair. That shouldn't really come into a review of the movie, but I'm stuck between a 5.5 and a 6, but I'm gonna go for a 6 as well. I think I feel comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So we have officially finished our watching review of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, and so we will now be going next to the Mark Webb Spider-Man movies. So we'll be starting with the Amazing Spider-Man 1, which for us in the UK comes out on Friday. At the time of recording right now, it's a Wednesday, so in 2 days that will be out, and we'll be reviewing those two movies. The first one I very much so look forward to. The second one will be a whale of a time, I should say. But it's gonna be good. But we are No Drama, Just Movies, guys. My name is Cameron K. Smith, and I'm joined by
Bill.
That's it. We have literally more reviews, as we said, that are going to be coming out each and every week. If you do have an opportunity, check out our reviews of Deadpool and Wolverine, Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, and we also reviewed Alien Romulus. We will be reviewing, obviously, the new Spider-Man movies to come, and we'll be also dropping some other reviews as well. If you like this video or if you like what we do, please give it a like. Subscribe, comment, please share. That always helps us. And also, we'd like to get involved in the conversation as well. Always helps us with that and what we may plan to do. Once again, we are No Drama, Just Movies. And thank you so much for tuning in. And we will see you very, very soon.
Bye.